So this is the Grassroots movement from inception to delivery interactive workshop. I think we have two speakers here today, Edmilson and Angelo, who's director of Change One's Life, and Dapo, Oyewole, the special advisor on development planning and international affairs to the Speaker of the House of Reps in Nigeria. I'm going to read both their profiles and I'm going to hand over to Edmilson. Edmilson Angelo is a PhD candidate at the Institute of Development Studies, University of Sussex, a diplomatic consultant at the Embassy of Angola in the UK, a political analyst, and a social entrepreneur from Angola. He holds a bachelor's degree in politics and international relations from the University of Westminster, a master's degree in African studies from the University of Oxford, and executive certification in smart policy design from Harvard University, while he is on his final doctoral degree year in international development from the University of Sussex and the Institute of Development Studies. Additionally, he is a political analyst on African affairs with major focus on Mesopotamian Africa and Angola specifically for news channels such as BBC News, DW, VOA, SIC, and many more. On top of that, he is the founder and director of Change One's Life, a youth-led charity development, practical, applicable, and sustainable organization to combat poverty in sub-Saharan Africa since 2014, becoming one of the most prominent youths in Africa today, with recognition from institutions such as the UN and One Young World. Please welcome with me, Edmilson. Before Edmilson goes on, I will also read Dapo's profile. Dapo is the special advisor on development planning and international affairs to the Speaker of the House of Representatives in Nigeria. Over the past 2 decades, Dapo has worked at the intersection of governance, public policy, international development, management consulting, and global affairs. In the public sector, he has served as special advisor on international and interparliamentary affairs to the Speaker of Nigeria's House of Representatives, and also as a special advisor to 2 cabinet ministers, first at the Nigerian Presidency's National Planning Commission, and secondly at the Ministry of Finance with Donor Coordination, International Development Corporation, and Strategic Planning as his primary portfolios. He is a senior Oyewole Fellow, senior Aspen New Voices Fellow, Chevening Scholar, and co-editor of the books Development as Dignity, Frontline Stories from Development Practitioners in the Global South, and author of 10 Key Lessons African Leaders Should Learn from Tackling the COVID-19 Pandemic. Please welcome with me, Dapo.
Good. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. I think it's still morning. It is indeed my honor to be here with you today. It is, of course, an honor to share the panel with Dapo. It is always a pleasure to share this little story of mine in an institution like this, because everything that you're about to see started as a university student. A small idea that has today become one of the biggest social enterprise in Africa, helping more than 3 million people over 8 years. So my name is Edmilson Angelo. I'm from Angola, a youth with a lot of drive to be the change that I want to see. And I'm here to present to you my story with Change One's Life, which is an international social enterprise developing practicable, applicable, and sustainable solutions to combat poverty around sub-Saharan Africa since 2014, with major focus on Angola because a good son always starts from home. And today, this is more than a charity. Today, this is a social movement. This is what I call the new virus that is up there to inspire young people to do more, to stand for something bigger than themselves, and to just understand the power that they have in their hands to be the change that they want to see. So I'm going to start with the why. So a little bit of backstory. When I came to the UK about 9 years ago as a sponsored student, I was bombarded with charity adverts everywhere I went, whether it was in the streets, whether it was in the metro, whether it was on TV. Everywhere I went, there was always help Africa, save African children, try and do something for Africa. And I started questioning myself, for somebody like myself that has lived, obviously I come from Angola, but I have lived in Namibia and South Africa as well. I started questioning myself on whether, how come countries like the UK, which they're not really exposed to how much people suffer in these places, are able to mobilize each other towards something good for ourselves when we, as Africans, are not able to do that. And that made me start donating to a big charity, an international charity, which I'm not gonna promote them now. But the truth of the matter is that that was so deep in me that allowed me to start donating to a charity. But as I started my bachelor's degree in international relations, I had a module on international development where I was exposed to scandals of charities that are making millions and not really doing much, where I was exposed on how donations that we give are not really ending up where we want them to end up. So I had two options. Either I stopped donating to a charity and stopped this dream of helping, or I started something that within my vision I saw as the way to go forward. So I opted for the second option, and I decided to create something at the uni. I created a uni society called Change One's Life, where I started where I was, how I could, and whatever I had. And I used to put out flyers around my uni asking people to donate. And every time I used to go back home for holidays, I used to pay extra luggage and take the stuff with me. I used to give it around street vendors, orphanage. And then people started seeing what I was doing and advised me to try and turn that into official charity. In one of my trips to Angola, I was exposed to an episode that literally changed the way I started doing my work. In one of the work that we did in a hospital in Angola, I saw a child dying in his mother's hand. And that image was so stuck in my head that became the logo of the social enterprise. It's like a baby's face and a hand below. And when I came back after holidays, I told myself that I need to do everything within my powers to never see that again. And that was around 2013. Today we're in 2023, and the charity has been running while I'm a full-time student and many other things. Today I call this my living purpose, and I'll tell you why. So children at the heart of our work. When I started with the work, there wasn't much resources, much knowledge, much direction. It was just young people wanted to do something. And then obviously the way we saw in terms of impacting people's life around the continent was by investing in children. But the truth of the matter is that in our continent, if you want to help a child, you need to help a mother, you need to help a family, you need to help a whole community. So everything that we do goes beyond impacting children's life. It goes within impacting real community change and generational change. So when I came back with the experience that I had, I started getting people together. I took what I was doing within practice and I turned it into a whole constitution. And I actually applied to have the certificate. And within 2 weeks, which is something that is not normal, I actually got a charity certificate to run the movement as an official charity, which allowed us to sort of go out to all the resources that are out there to make the dream come true. So we did a house-to-house collection around the UK, and within 1 month, we managed to fill up a 24-loan container full of donations. And then obviously, after filling that container, we didn't have resources to ship it, so we had to work extra time at Pizza Hut and Domino's, and then we managed to get the money to ship the container. Getting the container in Angola, it took us more, and it cost us more to take the container out of the port than to ship it from the UK to Angola. But the truth of the matter is that since then, the work has changed, and I think people began to understand that there's people that can really come up with solutions for our continent. I guess in the first years of existence, the goal was really for us to try and create a movement, make people understand what is it that we want to do, because obviously we're still trying to understand as we went. So in the first 2 years, we were doing a lot of small things in many different countries, even though Namibia, South Africa, and Angola are the ones there. Namibia, Angola, and Mozambique are the ones there. But in the first years, we did work in Uganda, we did work in South Africa. We were doing small things in many different countries. That was for us to build the momentum and make people understand that, look, we can actually create our virus here, that we come together and we do something amazing for the continent. But then with more resources, with a better vision, we started doing bigger things in small number of places. Why? Because we started understanding that with the resources that we had, it was impossible to distribute in all these different countries. We were not doing nothing. And then in the first years, we were just collecting data, building trust within communities, allow people to understand the vision, and then start mobilizing the international community, and also put pressure on international NGOs working in Africa to show them, look, we are small and we're doing so much. How come you guys that have been here since our civil wars are not doing much for our people? So we started in 2014. We are in more than 3 countries with more than 8 projects. We have got a headquarters here in London, but we don't do the actual work here. We just mobilize the international community. Everything is directed towards sub-Saharan Africa. Our main headquarters is in Angola, where we have over 500 volunteers. And obviously with 8 years of existence, we started to really implement the real vision, because Change One's Life is not a social enterprise, it's a generational vision, and I'm just going to show you guys some of the things that we have come up with. This is one of the innovations, and I think the theme within my presentation should be impact through innovation. So when we begin our work, we started looking at education as a solution for everything. And then we started using the resources that we had, whether it's Portuguese, whether it's English, whether it's math, and we started teaching these communities. But we noticed that when we were teaching, that there was no results coming out, because for many of these communities, the day starts when the light comes out, and then towards the end of the day, when the sun goes down, the day is over. So they didn't have extra times to practice while we were teaching, so we're not doing anything. So we realized that perhaps for us to be able to impact these communities directly, we need to come up with a solution that allows them to really use the extra hours of the day to practice what we are teaching. So we came up with the Light Project. We didn't have resources to implement renewable energy, so we mobilized the international community, and we got a partner in South Africa who provide us with these solar LX, which are small solar-powered lanterns that you can put in your pocket. This was to force people to have extra hours of the day to practice what we're teaching. This is to force people to stop using things like kerosene, which are not good for the environment, for the health. And this was also good because for many of these communities, the market is the main roads, and it becomes really dangerous when people have to walk going back to the house. So this is actually a SOS mode within these lights, where people are able to move and sort of like alert drivers that they're in the roads. This was our first innovation that got a lot of attention from the international community. We actually were reached out by Aecon when we participated in Aecon Light in Africa through this work. We distributed over 300 lights. We caught the attention of the government, obviously, because we are solving one of the biggest issues in the continent and in our country as well. And then the idea was to try and sort out or come up with a solution that would be short, medium-term solution. Then we could maybe get the resources to then implement solar panels with better capacity. And I guess what I'll show you guys towards the end is really what we are doing today, where we are building digital and ecological villages, where we are transforming rural areas into smart and green villages, where the vegetables and fruits from a small village in Angola can be sold in Sainsbury's, in Tesco. So we have got a lot of partners here, and we ship containers to Angola and to Africa every 3 months, and then we transform those containers into solutions to these communities. These are just some of the pictures of the Project Light. I'll take you guys next to our Kidimweno lab, where we're providing digital education. Like I said, the containers that we ship from the UK to Africa with donations from Manchester United, Amazon, Google, University of Oxford, we then turn those containers into digital classrooms where people have access to digital education, where the youth have access to vocational courses, how to fix a computer, things that can allow them to get jobs easily. And then we also use these infrastructures to teach the older generation of the farmers on financial education. So this was sponsored by Maersk Line, which is one of the biggest shipping company. And this is part of our digital and ecological village project as well. And it's just a small thing that really transformed the whole community. I'll show you another one. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing anything if we focus on education without focus on health. And another thing that we did with another container was we built these small rural health centers, where the idea of the course today is to focus on local solutions for global problems. How can we come up with small ideas within our local context that can really transform the dynamics of these communities? So we have we implement health centers around different rural areas in Angola, and we try to use local context to come up with solutions. For instance, in Angola, we have these little Chinese bikes that I think you have in many African countries as well. So you can use them to transport products and everything. So we actually decided to transform one of them into a motor ambulance. We literally just transformed the back part of it, if you can see on the pictures out there. The idea is, how can we use what we have locally and turn that into something that can help? And usually what we do is, if you have a motor ambulance that allows us to take people that need assistance from the rural areas into the urban area, that will force the government to at least just not have to struggle in terms of transportation and be pressured to actually assist these people, because we are already doing much of the work in terms of moving people. So this is another thing. We got help from the BBC. This is also part of the digital and ecological village, which I guess is just a combination of these little small ideas that we're implementing. We've got a maker space in Angola where we think and then we implement whatever we're thinking. So let's say we are discussing an idea here, and then we all move into the maker space, and then we'll make it happen out there. And many people actually being innovative over there, people actually living off that maker space, and I'll show you guys another project that really transformed our work, which is our kids hand washing basin. Basically, during the pandemic, we were the social enterprise that was mostly active in terms of providing assistance to people that couldn't sell the product in the informal market. But we started thinking, how can we create something that will become a legacy within the COVID-19 period? And we noticed that one of the department or one of the group within society that was highly ignored in terms of the prevention against COVID-19 were young children. So we wanted to create something that will make people or kids feel included in the whole process of preventing against COVID-19. And my first idea was, how can we make something where the water comes out of the Pinocchio nose, so that when the kid sees that, he can feel like, okay, I need to wash my hands. So we decided to transform old oil drums into hand washing stations for the kid. This is actually the process of, I don't know if you can, this is basically how we create, this is our maker space. So all young people coming together, you come with the idea, the painter comes with the idea, and then this is what we do in our maker space. Right, so basically when we created that, we wanted to first make the world understand that we can come up with local solutions for global problems. We wanted, and in the beginning we started using international cartoons because we wanted to get the attention of the international community. That's actually what made us get finance from Disney, because we were using the Disney cartoons. But after we got the finance necessary for it, we started then stop focus on international cartoons and start focusing into local cartoons. And our hand washing stations, they are more than a hand washing station. They are an instrument of education. They are an instrument of representation. We draw, different cultures within Angola. So basically, this has become something so powerful that it became a small idea that has transformed our cause both socially but also financially, because there's also another aspect to this, which is the commercial side of it. And that's where the sustainability comes on. For private sectors, like private schools, like entities such as companies, they can actually have hand washing station made with the logo on it, and they have to pay for it, and that's how we sustain the project. Over here, within this little park, we do actually eco chairs with it, so we try to use everything that we have, and these are small ideas that can really, really, really transform the game. Obviously, we got sponsored by the Embassy of Switzerland, but this has become a true fairy tale story, and is perhaps the case study that allow us to shift from a charity into a social enterprise because of how much came out of this small idea. Right, just another thing. So recently there was a huge crisis in Angola with a lot of people in the streets. And then again, we decided to come up with something that could perhaps be another solution for the issue that we're facing. And in Angola, we have this little kiosk where people sell burgers. It's very cultural to us. And it's actually a very small business for people that are people that want to become entrepreneurs in Angola. So we try to use this thing that is so close to our culture and turn that into something that could become the solution to our problem. Like I said, the idea is always, how can we use local context solutions to our own problems? So we turn this kiosk into a mobile food bank. We solar panel on it because that way we can also inspire people that have this as a business to start focus on renewable energy rather than have generators making noise. But also, again, what is the sustainability of the project? Imagine you as Tesco, as I'm just trying to use an example of British companies. Imagine you as Google, whatever, having your logo around a food bank that is moving around the city. That for you is market, and that's how we have the sustainability of the project. When we actually came up with this project, obviously, we passed the message that it's just to feed people, because obviously sometimes to work in Africa and do the work that we do is not easy. So you have to pass on the message that that's the idea, so people won't stop your vision. But this is more than that. That's for us to be able to collect the data on who's in the street, who's from the street, contexts that are different. That's for us to essentially then have to force people to do something to have access to what we are providing. So wherever we go with this mobile food bank, people have to clean the street to have access to what we are giving. So that way we are cutting on dependency and you're showing them that in order for you to get something, you have to give as well. But more importantly, eventually these are gonna be small kits that you're gonna give to the people that are in the street to take back to the neighborhoods and then use that as a solution for their own problem instead of them having to come to the main areas in the city. So that's our headquarters in Angola. So we're just testing how this is gonna be impactful. So we put that outside of our headquarters, and the way people started coming together just to see what is it that is there, made us realize that we can definitely do amazing things locally without having to always knock on people's door to help and solve our problems.
What's written?
Without hunger.
Yes, Angola without hunger. So yeah, and then we started doing, like I said, every time we launch a project, we always try to make sure that we understand and get the data necessary before we start really reaching towards our vision within that project. So this is some of the things that we did. So this is our digital and ecological village, which has become today perhaps the most famous project within our cause, because many companies are now curious to find out what is it that these kids are doing, how are they transforming without any governmental support rural areas into small digital and ecological villages. And we have Total, we have so many different companies that are now having to take days off their own working days to come and see what is being done there. And obviously the world is starting to really get on the move with what is it that we are doing, because these are type of ideas that they can create generational impact. They can also be amplified and replicate in different areas, and they can essentially become the solution to our problems. This also allows us to connect the local with the global, because for you as Nike that has been giving us shoes for the past 9 years, I think because of the trust that we build with you, we now have the leverage to get in a room with you and tell you like, look, you've been giving me shoes for 8 years, we did a lot of work with our shoes, why not open a factory within our digital and ecological village and leave that with us and provide jobs and real impact instead of just giving us the shoes. So this is what we have been building towards, in the last 9, 10 years with the cause. So that's the cause. This is just some of the partners on it. But essentially, I guess my story with Change One's Life is like I say all the time, it literally is a fairy tale story that allows me to get in a room and be able to allow people to understand that you have the power to be the change that you want to see. I always tell people, if you think you're too small to have an impact, lock yourself in a room with a small mosquito and you see such a small thing having such a massive impact. And I think it's important for people to understand the power that they have. And this is just one of the many stories that are out there of young people that are really causing disruption and real transformational change. So thank you.
Excellent. Please, can we give him another round of applause? I'm sure you agree with me, that was exceptionally inspiring. And you actually ended with exactly the same thoughts that I was having, which was that, we all talk about making change in our societies, making change in Africa, and everybody thinks you need to become the president or become a minister before you can do that. But in this instance, we have this brilliant gentleman and his team who are seeing problems and translating those problems into solutions in multi-layered ways in which they're actually addressing multiple problems at once. The extraordinary point that I also identified was the fact that it's all very simple. It's not even rocket science. Take a container, transform it, take a Chinese bike, change it. These are simple solutions, and the only thing that is often missing is passion, commitment, and competence. And I think that's one of the things your team has definitely demonstrated in every way. We're not only inspired, but also very proud of the work you've done. So congratulations to you and your team. Now, having been through that, I'm sure many of you, not only did you get ideas, you probably also have some comments and some questions. Perhaps we'll open up the floor. We have about 30 minutes for questions, comments, and hopefully what we hope will be a very enlightening conversation. I think what I'll do is, if this is okay with you, I'll take 3 questions, come to you, and then go back again, so that way we keep it going. All right, so I noticed, madam, your hand was, please just let us know your name, and in the interest of participation, maybe we can just keep it brief and to the point.
Hi, my name is Precious. I'm a master's student at the University of Bristol. So my question is, I want to find out that you do a lot of great work, but then I'm thinking, don't you think that you're overstretching yourself? Like, you just see a problem, so one, you move to another. So do you try to like draw a line or find, is it, if it's not deviating from your mission, I just want to know that. But well done, you're really doing a lot of great work.
Okay. I think I'll just, since the gentleman is right next to you for logistical ease, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your presentation. My name is Abutayo from Nigeria. In terms of engaging with local communities, how do you deal with pushback in terms of you trying to implement something, but you don't have partners in how you're thinking, and you do have power in those communities? How are you able to navigate that, especially with communities where you're still seen as an outsider, maybe Namibia or Mozambique, for an example?
Okay. I think I'll just go to the back, take the gentleman whose hand has been up, and then the lady here, and then that balances out into 4, and then we'll do another round afterwards.
Yeah, my name is Ahmed, and that's an incredible presentation. I'm really curious about your theory of change and logic model, because I really enjoyed the presentation, I enjoyed everything, but how do you actually communicate everything that you do? Because I understand that founders want to see like the logic behind how that change happened. So what's that logical flow behind, like, Bob, food and every other thing? Like, how does that work? Because I'm just really curious about the logic model and how change happened, basically.
Okay, good. And we'll just take one question here. There is absolutely, yes, please.
Hello, my name is Rosine from Congo. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm in awe. I just wanted to ask a bit about how you've garnered interest from the international community. You mentioned partnerships with the BBC, Disney, I think Amazon. Those are very big brands. How have you gone about that, and how do you continue to keep it sustainable?
Right. All right, fantastic. So 4 key questions, and I think we can start with the question around overstretching. Are you doing too much?
Right.
Or in fact, are you eager to do so much more?
Right, so that's a very good question. I guess when you do what you love, you never feel like you're doing too much. And obviously, like I said, it seems like this is my full-time job, but through all these years, I have been a full-time student, I have been doing so many things, and that's why I call this my divine purpose, because if it wasn't being guided, I would perhaps not be able to push it as much as I push it. And I know that sometimes, and I think this is a problematic example, obviously, when we start something, you only have one bullet, and you have to have a target and just focus on that target. We can't shoot everywhere because we won't be able to reach. But I think with our context, where everything is so interconnected, you are able to sort of marry all of it. When I talk about a digital and ecological village, it's a combination of all these things. So in order for us to get there, all these things have to come along. And they will come on basically on what is the demand. If the issue is right then, we can solve it. And this becomes sort of like it becomes sort of like your gift, because you are able to see solutions where problems arise. And whatever comes, you'll be able to deliver. Obviously that we can't do everything. There's so much that we can have done it. But 8 years of existence in working in a country like Angola that is so hard, that means that there's resources for you to be able to deliver. That means that there is knowledge for you to be able to put people in the right position, for them to lead the way. Maybe my job is for me to just focus on solutions through my heart and come up with some of these ideas. But within our team, there's people that are more dedicated into the environment issue. So they can't just be focused on education when there's already some people focused on that, right? So essentially, I guess the idea is really to try and come up with practicable and applicable solutions, not just one solution. I don't think there's just one solution. So obviously, you might see so many things, and you see, how do you have time? Are you not overstretching yourself? I think the result speaks for itself. I don't think I am, and I think it's much needed. Otherwise, I would just be talking about food and other problems that are happening, and I can't do it just because I don't want to overstretch myself.
But how do you then, like the other gentleman asked,
Right.
how do you deal with the scenario whereby you do want to help?
Right.
But I'm sure there are instances when people tell you, we don't want your help.
Right.
We trust you.
Right.
We don't know you. You're an outsider.
Yeah.
So like the second question was really about how do you get that local buy-in?
Right.
You talked earlier on about investing time in building trust.
Exactly.
Talk to us about
Right,
that.
so that's again a very important question. I think everything takes time, and I think most of the time people think that we have the solution. I think in the previous section, that's what somebody said. Sometimes we think we know, but we don't. And I think with us, what has really worked is us understanding that it's impossible for you to think that people will unlearn what they know within 1 year. It takes time for you to be able to call these a virus where everybody will understand that, look, we don't need to look at the government as a solution for our problem. Each one of us can come up within our resource and do something amazing. And I think with me, and this is also plays with my expertise within academia, is a question of positionality. I have to be able to position myself as a director, as a youth who is also facing the same issue, as a foreign academic that coming from an institution, but most of the time just as a young people that wants to learn, And like I said, when we got there, we thought that maybe we can start with education, but that wasn't the solution. So they showed us that what we need is just maybe electricity, right? So we create this space where people are able to participate and sort of draw the vision of what's development for them. And that's where we pick up from. So within our experience, like I said, it's 8 years of existence, and people only able to see what we saw 10 years ago today. So maybe what people are seeing today already saw 10 years ago. What I'm seeing today, you only see 20 years from now. So because it's a generational vision. And I feel like the question of positionality is really what has helped us, Let's not make too much noise, because we know that within our countries, people talk the talk but don't walk the walk. Let's make sure that people understand that this is something that is here to stay and is being done by the youth. And some of the exercise that we do, because in places where the government acts as the father, when you do work like that, people might think that you're also part of the government. So you have to be able to deconstruct this idea that this is coming from the government. No, this is coming from young people that also have necessities, that have taken the time and the resources to help you, but you have to help yourself. And some of the things that we do is, let's say if we want to put clean water into the community, every family has the job to sort of cultivate the route where the tubes will be, meters by meters, so that way everyone is participating in the whole process. That's why today when you go out there, and I wish I could show you the videos, no one can, try to politicize our work. No one can really, not be able to understand what's happened, because after 8 years, people are now really understanding that it's possible and it's happening. So yeah, that's why I call it the new virus.
So in a sense, you are doing very important development work, but you're doing it in a political space, and
Exactly.
that's the
Exactly.
reality.
Exactly.
And sometimes you have to manage those things and balance them out. But then, like someone mentioned, you've done so much in such a short time, 8 years. Definitely, there has to be a theory of change, a sort of logical flow from your very first light bulb moment. Describe to us briefly, what's that process? Let's get into your genius of a brain for a second.
Right, so basically, I think when I came to the UK, like I said, I was bombarded with charity adverts everywhere, and I started questioning myself. And I think all of us at a stage of our life, we get into the point where we start questioning our existence. What am I really doing it? What is it that I want to leave behind? And I think from that stage on, I started working where I was, how I could, and whatever I had. But I didn't have a vision, I just have the drive, right? I just want to help. I don't know how, but I just want to help. But with time comes experience. And in order for people to understand the bigger vision, you have to take time and show them the small visions. And I think if I have to say, okay, the main focus is looking at education as the main pillar to solve everything. But for you to get to education, there's so many other things that you have to solve that there isn't just one specific method. You have to go and adapt and adjust within time, because the resources are different, the times are different, the people that are gonna come and help you are also different. But I think if I perhaps have, obviously today I'm very, I feel like I am a genius, because the way I'm able to see problems, come up with solutions, which now I'm trying to turn that into money because people have been stealing my ideas too much. But the idea is to sort of show people that, look, there's so much that we can do, and when we do it, focus already, how am I going to sustain that? How am I going to be able to cut all these risks of having to depend on the government? Then they'll have to direct my vision. How am I going to be able to mobilize the international community and be like, look, it's not just about what you guys are doing, it's about what we are doing here. You guys have to listen to us. So I guess it's really try to use the international space that I have conquered and try to really create generational impact. That can be educational, agriculture. And I think the digital and ecological village is a combination of things. When people start seeing our bananas coming from Angola to Tesco, that's when people understand that this can be our problem. So many things, tourism, agriculture, so many other things. So I guess I'm just trying to use this little vision to really transform the continent and the country in a way that has never been done before.
Well, in Nigerian Pidgin English, which many people who watch Nollywood, I'm sure, can speak now, we say, soup way sweet, na money killer. So in essence, if something is really good, that means you must have poured a lot of money into it. And I think that goes to the other question about, I think Rose's question about financing, funding, and sustainability. I mean, we operate in an environment where, in many cases, like you rightly said, the whole issue of poverty in Africa is overplugged. And again, you also have a trust deficit at times where people step forward and say they want to do something, but people don't trust you. They don't believe you're authentic and you're genuine. But in your case, you seem to have done pretty well. You've got Amazon and some of the big global brands providing that support. How did you build that confidence? How did you corral the large number of funders that you have? And more importantly, how do you sustain it beyond that external funding? Because for as long as you're beholden to external funding, then of course your own agency itself is also constrained.
100%. Yeah, that's a very important question. And I think within our case study, and I feel like, I guess it's causing disruption within the rooms that you enter. And what do I mean by that? I feel like in the beginning of the whole project, obviously I needed to be the biggest volunteer of the charity, the biggest financer of the charity, the biggest marketeer of the charity. Everything was coming out of my pocket. But then I feel like within the UK space where I started, people were never used to see somebody running a cause, going to pick up the stuff, paying for the shipment of the stuff, coming back with evidence of what's being done, and actually seeing that people are benefiting from the evidence as well. Because there's a structure that allows people, as a company, if you have something to donate, the moment I send back the evidence, you'll be so amazed with how much we managed to make lemonades with the lemons that you gave us, that you're gonna want more. And it's a question of competition, right? Today we got it from Nike. If Adidas sees that, they're going to want to do it as well. So it's always that position. That's why we get help from Nike, from Adidas, get help from Cambridge, from Oxford. It's a way of you putting them in a position where they feel like, now somebody's benefiting from that, I can also help and benefit from that. And how do you do that? Quality images and videos of stuff that they give. If they give you stuff, don't just donate the stuff. Show them that it's not just about giving, it's about creating sustainability. And create a project around that can force them to see that as their own corporate social responsibility and have to go after you to take care of that. So that's how I have been doing it. But most importantly is every space that I have gotten, I didn't ask for money. I asked people, look, either you come now or you regret later. And I think sometimes when you take that approach, and then with time people start seeing that it's happening, people they will be forced not to ignore you and they'll be forced to invest on you. And I think that's very much what we did, is people seeing, look, how much can we trust somebody that is working within countries with, a lot of issues, whether it's corruption, whether it's political instability. But I think the moment you start showing people that, look, the years are passing by and the work is becoming bigger, the impact is becoming higher, essentially you're gonna want to be in it, because Today, a problem for one is a problem for all. And you as the private sector, you now want to be engaged or involved with people that are really delivering the work and are putting you in a position of power. So I guess my thing has been putting them in a very uncomfortable position and never stop. If we don't have it, let's do whatever we have. And then they will be able to come in, you know. So that's how we.
So very interesting. So be accountable on one hand, ensure you do proper reporting, and more importantly, deliver results.
Exactly.
Let this work speak for itself.
Right. It's just to argue on the sustainability aspect of it. Obviously, right now, and I showed you guys, everything that we create needs to take on to the element of sustainability and eco-friendly. Why? Because obviously you can't just come up with an idea to feed people if that's not going to be able to sustain itself. So everything that we have been doing lately, it comes on within that aspect. So that's why I don't call it a charity anymore. I call it a social enterprise because there are costs involved with that. There's people that have to get salary on that. There's things that we have to pay on a daily basis. So how can we then create something that can be sustainable for us to not have to depend, you know? How can we become maybe the social McDonald's, you know? How can we become a social bank to invest whenever we need to invest, you know? So I think when we create things like the hand washing station, we're like, look, a percent is gonna be for the social aspect, another percent we're gonna open the commercial aspect so that people can pay for it. And then that's what we do with pretty much everything, you know? With the mobile food bank, how can we get companies to invest in it so that we can promote the image, while at the same time we are pushing towards our vision. So pretty much everything we do needs to have that element, otherwise we don't go forward until we solve that issue of sustainability.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very, very good question. So we'll come round and take another 4. The lady behind, then the gentleman right in front of her, then we'll come forward to this lady in white in front of me.
Thank you so much. It's incredible to hear all the work you're doing, and I just want to commend you for choosing low carbon technologies to promote development. I just want to.
Your name, please.
Oh, sorry. I'm so amazed by your work. I forgot my name. My name is Ali Sokonji, and I'm a student here at the LSE, and I'm studying environment and development. I'd like to ask about the framing of our problem. So I see you identify a gap, you come in and try and fix it. And I like your concept of local solutions to local problems. But do you find that by finding these solutions, we kind of put a band-aid to existing challenges in these countries, in these sectors, and then it doesn't really allow us to hold our governments accountable for not addressing the needs of the communities? Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. I think the gentleman there, right beside, yeah.
Yeah, and my question is just piggybacking on hers actually. It's very much related.
Your name.
Your name.
Oh, my name. Beg your pardon. Maybe perhaps I'm also excited with what you're doing. That's why I forgot to say the name. My name is Abubakar. I'm also from Nigeria. I do a mixed MSc between LSE and LSHT. I'm health policy planning and finance. And yeah, so like I said, my question is piggybacking on hers, right? It's about financial sustainability, right? But looking at it from the domestic financing angle, right? You really have incredible ideas. You've incubated most of these ideas and they've translated into tangible results, right? So the question is, how might we, first of all, scale up these ideas, right? Scaling them in a meaningful way that they can provide meaningful impact, for example, in this case, to the Angolan population. And the number 2 is, how do we sustain them from the domestic angle? And maybe one direct question, have you ever shared some of these success stories with the Angolan government and really showed them that, you know, this is possible and they should invest in human capital development this way? Thanks.
Thank you, Abubakar. I think there was, the lady in white and then the gentleman here in brown.
Hi, Edmilson. Thank you so much for everything you've said so far. My name is Somto Chukwudimobi. I'm also from Nigeria. I recently moved here from the US, so just trying to meet people in this space here as the background in strategy consulting. So my question is, as you think about like your yearly planning, because it looks like you have a, 5-year, 10, 20-year plan, and everything has a back pocket plan, and then after that, this is what I'm doing next. So you're clearly thinking very strategically about everything that you're doing. How do you make trade-offs on a yearly basis, or however frequently you do your planning on skill versus impact versus financial sustainability? I know that's something that nonprofits and social enterprises alike battle every day. For instance, I guess, are you thinking how can you reach 10,000 people? Are you thinking how can you reach 100 people, but in very deeply meaningful ways? Or how can you get this to a point where it's more financially sustainable? Or how are you combining all of those three things at the same time?
Great.
Okay, sorry.
Hi there, thank you to both of you, really great presentation. Sal Mohammed, I look after the ex-Google community.
This is Samuel?
Sal Mohammed.
Sal.
I look after the ex-Google community here in the UK. Also run a tech charity called Dogo. We give people free healthcare, turning donations into healthcare using technology, end-to-end trackable. Really interested for you to talk about data quite a lot. Somewhere I spend a lot of time. What data are you collecting and what do you want to do with it? And also a little bit about your educational current practice. You know, why not go fully in now? How does the education that you do now tie back into the Life Vision?
Fantastic, and in the interest of time, I think we don't really have much time to really come back. So I guess with this, we'll get the responses and then we'll sort of round up. And I've just been told we have 10 minutes, so we have to jump into it really quickly. So yes, problem framing, the question from Alice.
Right, so the question on whether that in the local context cannot become something that is not holding the government accountable. I actually do believe, and I think there's enough evidence that actually that's the opposite. It does hold them accountable. And why do I say that? Because I feel like in a country like my country, Angola, whereby people are so dependent and people are used to seeing the government as the final solution for everything, the moment we create solutions that are changing people's mindset and making people understand that you can't just come here every 5 years when there's elections to provide or promote, or promise stuff and then not deliver. When there's actually young people that are here every day, every single year, empower our youth and our community to deliver, they will not be voting for you. We have case studies where people are removing the flags of political party, they are putting change one's life. And that becomes problematic. And I feel like if I didn't understand politics, maybe the idea would already be done, because it's really going too deep into it. And I think it holds the government accountable, not just local government, but also international NGOs that have been working in our countries. My country is rich in oil, and there's been NGOs that have been there since the Civil War, making billions and billions of money. However, they haven't really done much. And then when young people see that another Angolan fellow is being able to do so much, then start questioning you, what are you, United Nations of this world doing in our country? They start questioning, right? Because they can see that it's possible. So I feel like in a country like ours, the best way to put pressure is through actions. And the threat is not the people, in my opinion, it's not the people that are protesting, are those that are changing people's mindset behind the doors, where you go into place and don't understand how people don't really recognize you. And I think that's the real revolution. I think that's why I call this a social movement, because it's really moving towards that direction. So it does indeed hold government accountable. However, you always have to be careful. You have to be careful, obviously. And I feel like for me, and through the stuff that I have been, the struggle that I have faced since I started with the cause, that's why I decided not to put the work too much out, and not make too much noise, so that by the time people realize that this exists, it's already too late for them to stop.
Is this a good time to also answer the question of, does the Angola government love you for the great work that you're doing? Or are you showing up some of the capacity gaps within the government?
So I guess it's a sweet and sour relationship, and I guess it's why, because anything that can move international community becomes uncomfortable within our local government. That's not just in Angola. And then when we are able to do the work that you do, and then the next day you are in London on BBC talking politics because you studied that, you sort of put yourself in a position where no one wants to touch it because they think this is too big to be done by an Angolan. Maybe there's an international government behind moving him, and these perceptions sometimes help because people will be scared to touch you. However, at the same time, you need to understand your positionality of, I need to prove myself wrong, because I guess the structures are so old-oriented that you need to earn your space. And earning your space is not about you doing that work and showing case how bad the country is. It's showing them that my goal is not to showcase how bad the country is. It's for me to show people that you have the power to also do your part. And I guess like within these last 10 years, I earned that space, so I'm able to not pay for the container that I ship. Whenever there's a crisis, I'm able to mobilize because people trust the child more than the government, so people will help us and then we'll help the country. So now I have got a very good relationship. That's why I'm a consultant for the government. However, there's always that question, what is the agenda behind it? You know, when you look at everything, and I'm only 30, you know, and then people start, you know, looking at you as a solution to the problem, as the hope. And I think for me, really is navigating within that space where I'm able to show people that I'm not a threat. I'm just a young guy trying to do my part, while at the same time have to put pressure because it's my duty to do that. So they love me. I don't know how much so, but I think they do.
Well, while you were speaking earlier on, one of the things I tend to do is I listen to people and I think in my mind, you know, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 5 years from now. But I sort of struggled because I was thinking, do I call you Honorable Minister? Or do I call you Mr. President? Or do I call you Pastor? Because somewhere in the midst of all your conversations, you could see the politics, you could see the spirituality, or you should also see the social conscience, which is what's really driving a lot of your work. But then there was a question about how you scale up. How do you do that?
Right, so basically, and that was what we started with. That's why I said in the beginning we were doing too many small things in too many different countries because we have the status to do that. But that was part of our strategy because people needed to understand that there's something moving on. But we knew that we'll never be able to scout something that there isn't much sustainable thing being done. So we started focus on one specific area, and Angola has been our main case study because of the challenges that are there, because it's not part of the Commonwealth, it's a challenge. So we embrace that challenge. And in order for us to scale things into a level that can allow us to connect all these digital and ecological villages, is we need to have a case study that works. And then through that, we can then replicate that into different areas. For instance, our digital and ecological villages, the idea is for us to have trade between these villages, to have football tournament between these villages. This is how I'm connecting the global with the local. So this is how we can transform rural areas into something that allows the young people not to have to run to the urban areas in order to look for solutions. So the idea is for us to create these small ideas that can then be replicated at the local level, and then at the regional level, and then later on at the international level. So I guess in terms of how we plan is because we don't have much resources and we don't like to wait until the resources come, we start small. That's why it's called Change One's Life. Even if just one life at a time, we're gonna keep going, we're gonna keep going. By the time we realize, it's already millions of people being impacted. So we have more power within the spaces to tell people, look, this is the direction. And I think now with the resources that we have, is how can we connect the dots and then be able to maybe transform what we are doing there through the last 10 years and have maybe open a charity shop here that is different from the ordinary charity shop, where you showcase what really is being done, not through you coming and selling and buying stuff, but through you seeing, whether it's through pictures and galleries, what has been done in the past 8 years, so that you can then become part of it and maybe take the vision into, you know, Nigeria, into Kenya, into different parts of the globe. So I guess it's network as well.
But how do you then balance out the issues of scope, scale, impact, and financial sustainability, and of course the trade-offs? And I think that's what Samto was trying to highlight as well. How do you balance these things?
So basically, I guess it's important for you to understand that one and another, they have to work together. So it's impossible for you to say, I'm just going to focus on the impact, because along the way, you're going to have to stop because the other part is not responding to it. So in a way, we always try to put everything together in terms of the financial impact and the social impact as well. And we sort of move on. Obviously, there will be occasions where maybe the focus is going to have to be on the financial because the vision is much bigger, and then we have to focus on that. But most of the time, and I think what we are doing now, right now, because we focused for the last 8 years on the social impact, there's so much data, there's so much evidence, there's so much work that allow us to enter in any space and ask whatever we want because it's happening. So we needed to focus on the social part of it because it's also part of my heart. I wasn't comfortable asking people for money, but I guess now that all this is done, we have people that are coming on board that have that element of, look, we can really transform that into something bigger. We can reach out to all these companies and say, look, stop giving me your shirt with your logo because you're benefiting from what we do. Give us the money so we can have a better impact. So that's where we are. I always try to make sure the things, they work together, whether it's the social and the financial impact as well.
And as you make your concluding remarks, maybe you could also answer the final question, which was around, issues of data and education.
Right. So in terms of data, like I said, I guess the reason why the work has been moving so well is because much of what I do with the charity is also what I do within my academia, right? International development is me taking from what I learned into practice. And that's what I said. Everything started as a university society where I used to put out flyers asking people to donate, and it's become that. And I think the real essence of education, how can we utilize what we learn and turn that into real sustainable impact into our communities? In terms of education, I started the charity officially in 2014, and I've been a full-time student, bachelor's, master's, PhD. I teach as well. I teach responsible business at St. Mary's University. It's me using my experience and be able to showcase for students how, if you're thinking of making money, you also have to think about the social and environmental impact as well. But I guess, like I said, because I'm doing what I love and I feel like this is really my divine purpose, I'm not a pastor, but this is how I feel. I don't think we'll ever stop, but obviously now is at the point where the plane has already taken off. Now it's just a matter of me bringing people on board to take it on, because I think I've already done my job.
Well, I have one question, and it's a very, very profound philosophical question. When do you sleep?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer to that.
At least we can tell he's honest. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you will all agree with me. We've had a really, really interesting and a very inspiring conversation. Thank you all for your comments and your questions. But I'm sure you all also join me in a round of applause as we encourage.
Conversation. We will now have a lunch break, and we'll be back at 2:30 for the last panel. The future of Africa is the African Union on to deliver Agenda 2062. Thank you so much.
Thank you.